Okay, so we're going to start our next unit on Adjust Your Life by Chang-rae Lee. And for this series of lectures, I've sort of broken down the novel into sort of chapter by chapter lectures. So depending on, how fast you read the novel, you can sort of keep up with the different lectures. So you might read chapter 1 and then watch the chapter 1 video lecture, then read chapter 2 and then watch chapter two's video lecture, and so forth. So in this way you can sort of watch the lectures at your own pace. Okay, so in the novel by Chang-rae Lee, we have the protagonist, Franklin Hatta, who is known in his town as Doc Hatta, and we learn that he is, at least on the surface, a very kind of ordinary man who's sort of living out his retirement in this quaint town, American town called Bedley Run. And Hatta is our narrator, and we start to get this sense that maybe there's more to Hatta than he's letting on. And this becomes more and more obvious as he reveals things about his past, things about his relationships in the past, and we really, as the reader, discover that there's a lot more going on below the surface of this Franklin / Doc Hatta character. And what is going to be revealed and what our focus will be on will be how this character's past, in particular his military service for the Imperial Japanese Army, how that experience affects him long after that event is over. So even in his sort of 70s, he's now retired, he's still haunted by his past. And for him, the past is never really fully closed off. It keeps sort of blurring into his present, and we'll see how it will continually affect his life long after the war is over. So the way the novel plays out, we do get sort of different timelines, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Chang-rae Lee is a Korean-American author, and his novels often deal with themes of identity, and particularly how racial identity can be sort of experienced by those who are displaced from their home country. So we have a character like Doc Hatta, who was first born in Korea, or he was born from a Korean family, and then adopted by a Japanese family, and then later moved to an American town. So we sort of see this element of displacement from his Korean family to a Japanese family, and then from his Japanese roots to an American setting. So we see how all of these sort of moves influence or impact one's sense of identity. And Hatta, our main character, his identity is sort of more convoluted because he is a Korean man who has sort of assimilated himself into Japanese culture. And that's evident in the fact that he serves Japan. He serves the military, Japanese military, as a medic in World War II. So even though he is Korean in his cultural heritage, his family heritage, he identifies himself as a Japanese man and has largely sort of assimilated himself to the Japanese sort of way of life. And in the present, we see him in an American town, and he's also feels as if he is fully sort of assimilated to American culture. Although, as the story goes on, we get a sense that perhaps his sense of belonging is not as clear as he thinks it is, or as we see his identity is also impacted by racism and prejudice that still exists in American society as well. So these ideas of sort of displacement and identity and ethnic division and prejudice are all sort of part of Chang-rae Lee's texts. So there are three sort of distinct settings in the novel. The primary or framing narrative takes place in Bedley Run, an American town. And this is sort of the upscale, wealthy neighborhood where Doc Hatta is living in his beautiful house that he's restored, and it's got this gorgeous flagstone swimming pool in the backyard, and it's all very immaculate and pristine, and he lives in this very wealthy, upper class kind of American neighborhood. There's also the working class neighborhood of Ebbington, where his daughter Sunny lives and works, and this is more of a kind of contrast with Bedley Run, which in the sense that Ebbington is a little bit more struggling economically, not as, people aren't as wealthy who live there, but it's also a little bit more racially diverse. There's more diversity, and that's where his daughter Sunny chooses to live and work. And then the third setting will be the flashback scenes when Hatta remembers his service as a soldier for the Japanese Imperial Army in World War II. And the primary memories take place when he was stationed as a soldier in Burma, and the events that play out during that time in his past. In regards to the novel's plot structure, it's a little bit tricky and a little bit complicated or complex. You have sort of three distinct storylines. So the first one is the framing story, and this is the most, the present part of the novel, where we see Hatta as now a retired, he once owned this medical supply store. He's living in Bedley Run. Now he's retired from that job, and he's just sort of living out the rest of his life in Bedley Run. And we see in that framing story his reunion with his estranged daughter Sunny, and his decision near the end of the novel about which direction he wants his life to go in. So that's the framing story. So that is sort of the contemporary or most current timeline. And then we have his memories, and these are the inset stories. So the first inset story will be sort of the earliest or most past moment in his memories, and that'll be his service as a soldier for the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II. So that was the inset story where he's a young man serving for the Japanese military, and then all of his experiences that he had as a young man in his service that continually will haunt him for the rest of his life. The second inset story is his memories of parenting Sunny. So he adopted Sunny when she was 7 or 8, and then he sort of has all these memories about raising her in the town of Bedley Run, and they have a very sort of dysfunctional or contentious relationship. Sunny clashes with her father, so we get those memories as well. So those are the second set of inset memories or inset stories. So if you can kind of keep those three strands separate, and we can sort of see how they all intertwine as well. It's kind of a complicated narrative that way, but if you understand it as sort of three distinct storylines, that can help you sort of keep it all straight while you're reading. So we're introduced to our protagonist, Franklin Hatta, who is known affectionately around Bedley Run as Doc Hatta. He is a retired store owner, so he owns Sunny's medical supply store in Bedley Run, and so he got the name Doc, but that's what the community sort of labeled him as Doc Hatta, and he's sort of a fixture around Bedley Run, so well-known figure People sort of recognize and say hi to him when they see him on the streets. Now, since he's been retired a couple years, this sort of notoriety or friendliness is kind of dwindling a little bit. People don't really know him by his name anymore. He's just sort of seen as this elderly Asian man. And over the course of the novel, we get more insight into who this man is, and there'll be sort of secrets about his past and his past relationships. These will be revealed to us over the course of the novel. So it's really kind of unraveling who this man really is, what has happened to him in his past, and how his identity, his sense of self is complicated by all of his memories and past experiences, especially his military service for the Japanese Imperial Army. So Doc Hatta is our narrator, and as a narrator, he is what we would call unreliable. So there are things he'll say in his narration that we start to question, and he'll eventually reveal himself to be somewhat duplicitous or deceptive or a liar, pretty much, right? So certain things he'll keep hidden or keep lie about to his family and friends. And we see that even in chapter 1, where he pretends that his daughter Sunny has gone back to Japan when he's talking to Mrs. Hinkie. And even that is a subtle, very small white lie. Hatta keeps the truth about his daughter hidden from others because he doesn't want to ruin his reputation. So he cares very much about how he is viewed by others. He wants to maintain this kind of aura of respect. His reputation has to be sort of as an esteemed member of society, and he doesn't want to tarnish or ruin his reputation in any way. So he keeps things sort of hidden or buried, maintains this kind of surface of almost perfection or composure. Everything on the surface has to be perfect, but hidden beneath that identity lies a lot of hidden secrets about who he is and what he's done in his past. So that will be sort of slowly unveiled to us as we read more about Doc Hatta. And his experience will also be complicated by he'll reunite with his daughter Sunny, who is now estranged from him, and we'll see how his relationships with women in particular are complicated and tied up with that sense of his identity. It'll also be revealed that his identity, he views himself as a sort of assimilated into Japanese culture. But he is born to a poor Korean family, and we'll learn more about that as well. So this is a character who on the surface seems very ordinary, very kind of boring in a way even, just a regular kind of guy on the surface, but buried below there is a lot of sort of secrets, lies, and sort of hidden buried truths that will resurface, and so we'll talk about that over the course of the novel.